What up, everybody? Joe here. Huge shout out to everybody for getting out to a home group this week. Crazy days, but I want to give a shout out to the Vales. I want to give a shout out to the Doties and the Janelles and the Detlafs. Let's hear it for all of them, wherever you're at. Give it up for your hosts right now. They have opened their home, they have been generous, they have decked out their place, they have cleaned corners that they didn't even know needed cleaning, and it's just amazing to have such support and to have these families be so generous this week. So shout out to everybody that made it out. It's been amazing. We have over 100 of you meeting all across the region of the Moni area and surrounding area, and it's just an awesome, awesome testimony as to what God is doing in and through us together as a church. And so today I'm going to be sharing a few thoughts in between some clips that I want to share with you that are going to be from our Alpha course. Alpha is kind of like a multi-week course that we've offered since we started the church, and it's amazing, and they do a great job. And so I just want to be able to share a few of those things. And the first one here is just really imagine what it was like when you first were introduced to the idea of church. Now, maybe you think that because today we can't be in a building together and we can't be at camp this week, that you thought about that leading up to this weekend. And you're like, oh, we're not having church this weekend. Well, actually, these people that follow here probably would agree with you. So check this out.
To church before, like not even once.
I don't have much experience with church. When I was younger, I went with my grandparents a lot. It's just a lot of people yelling and clapping and making noise.
It's too long. I have a very short attention span, so I can't just sit there, stand there, and then just listen to people talk.
It doesn't matter what your beliefs are, you can walk into a church and be welcomed and have a good time.
I've been surrounded by a really good group of friends.
I've had really good moments and really bad moments with it.
I really like church because I see it as a community of people.
They've become like my second family.
The only time I ever went to church was for our friend's baptism because he asked us to go.
The church is obviously a place, it's like a hospital. You go there to be healed, you go there to be restored. So I've gone to church and I've actually experienced these things myself.
I just think the whole togetherness aspect is a cool part of it.
Well, I can remember my first experience with church. My dad came into my room and said, hey, this Sunday we're going to go to church. And I was like, absolutely not. And then we ended up going, of course. And then that Wednesday, he said, we're going to go to church again. You're going to go to youth group. And I was like, absolutely not happening. My first recollections of church were church as a place. And that's common right today, that people think of church as a place. We think of grocery stores as a place. I'm standing in the old Brock Miller's grocery store. This is the building we purchased, 5430 Main Street in Moni. And it's going to be a minute before we're in this place. But I'm here because we have to remember that as the church, it didn't start out as a place. Church didn't start out as a place. In Acts 2, verses 46 and 47, it says this. It says, every day, they, the early church, continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes, and they ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And so this is the thing to remember, is that what you're doing today is actually not new. What you're doing today is actually ancient. And something happens a couple hundred years into the early church. And what begins to change it to place is that the believers began to build buildings and gather in those buildings instead of always meeting in their homes. And those buildings became known as churches. And that is why now, today, we think of church as a place rather than church as people. But the truth of the matter is that the church, in its purest sense, is absolutely the people. And so what's interesting about when people gather, whether they gather in a church building today or whether they gather in homes like you are, the interesting thing is that something happens. And in Acts 2, verse 47, I didn't read the full verse, but it says this. It says that, and the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. And you got to wonder, why was it that this movement of people They were meeting in homes, and yet the Lord was adding to the number of people daily who are being saved. And I think it's the same reason that I stuck to the church and continue to go, is because I found family. Number one, I found the family of God. Like, I became a child of God when I put my faith in Jesus and put my faith in the Lord. And then I found brothers and sisters, other believers that became my family. And that's a huge, big deal. Family is a big way to look at and understand church.
Can't really say, I love God, but I don't love the church, because the church is God's family. The church isn't a building you go to, it's a family you belong to.
John writes, everyone who believes is a child of God. That means when we become a Christian, we receive a Father in heaven and a family on earth.
Yeah, and it really is all over the earth. What started here in Israel 2,000 years ago has spread all over the world. It's a global church, and it's full of diversity.
God's intention was to bring the whole human race together as a family, united around Christ.
The way we become part of the family isn't by physical birth, it's by spiritual birth. Jesus talked about being born of water and the Spirit.
Jesus was baptized, and he commanded his disciples to baptize. Baptism is a visible mark of what it means to be a member of the church. It's a sacrament. The water signifies washing, cleansing from sin. It symbolizes the Holy Spirit, the rivers of living water. And it also symbolizes us dying to our old life and rising with Christ into new life.
Hey, back at the house here in my home, I'm here with Roxy, who's trying to pretend to sleep. Oh, maybe someone's coming in the door. Who knows? One of the first things that I remember about being at church was that people really seemed to be having fun. They were laughing, having conversation, and just doing life together. And it really stood out to me. And I really believe that through the years, my best friends have been friends that I have found who are believers and are willing to do life together. And when the people of God are authentic, genuine, honest, and willing to kind of get in the trenches of life, it really is, it's life-changing. And when we think about the church, and we try not to think of it as a place, I know that I think about friendship and how those friendships have literally changed my life.
The church is about friendship with God, and it's about friendship with one another. A recent study found that even if someone has over 400 friends on Facebook, that same person might only consider one or two of them their close friends. And as many as 25% of the people surveyed confessed to not having any close friends at all.
The word that the New Testament uses to describe the types of relationships that we're meant to experience is a Greek word, koinonia. And it speaks this idea of authentic friendships, like a real depth of relationship. It's the kind of community where you can be yourself, where you can experience love and acceptance.
Hebrews says, let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another. Because it's this community that fuels our relationship with God. It's like hot coals in a fireplace. If you take one of the coals out of the fire, it quickly cools down. But when you place it back in with the other hot coals, it doesn't take long for it to be blazing hot again. In a similar way, without a community of friends, we can lose our passion. But hanging out with other Christians can fuel our love for God.
After I was a part of this movement of God, this church, these people, I met Sarah and ended up marrying her. And through that process, I ended up meeting her family, of course. And early on, when I experienced her family and what faith at home looked like, it was really powerful, because it was like, let's just say it was just like nothing that I've ever experienced before at home. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I think that there's like a level of home that is something that's inside us that we desire. We desire this sense of belonging and acceptance and love. As we like to say, to be seen, to be heard, to be known, to be loved. And I experienced that through Sarah's family. But I've also experienced that through the church, the people of God. I think that one of the greatest compliments that could ever be given to a church is that when you go there, you feel like you're home. I don't think you mean that you feel like you're in your kitchen, like, or your living room, but I think that you're tapping into this other definition, this other feeling we have of home that we all desire inside. I think that's the greatest compliment a church could ever get, is when someone says, I feel like I'm home.
This word captures two big ideas. The church is home for us, but it's also home for God. In the Old Testament, the physical temple built of stone was God's home. That's where people went to meet with God. In the New Testament, Paul talks about how church is not a physical building, it's a community of people.
In Ephesians, Paul says we are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by His Spirit. And Jesus said, for where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them.
The Spirit lives in the heart of every Christian. So when we gather together, God's with us in a special way.
So the church is a home for God, but the church is also a place for people to come and experience home. A place where people feel loved, accepted, and welcomed home.
So why is it so important for us to remember that we are the church, that the church is people, not a building, that it's about family and friends and home and the body of Christ? Well, I think if we remember back to the Old Testament, and if you don't know about it, the Old Testament is very transactional when it comes to the things of God. People were challenged to follow laws and try to keep them perfectly. But when you look at the New Testament, it's much more about being transformational. Old Testament is all about, hey, what can I get out of this transaction? But in the New Testament, and the time that we're living in now, it's all about being transformational. And it's less about what can I get out of being a part of the church, but it's what can I give? And sure, finances are part of it, but I'm also talking about everything else that our world desperately needs, like kindness and gentleness and love and respect and civility and being encouraging and providing peace and comfort in times of trouble. Like, these are all things that our world desperately needs, that we desperately need from each other. Another reason why it's important to remember is because around the world today, there are people that aren't able to meet in homes. In Afghanistan, last week while we were enjoying church, Afghanistan was falling. And today, to meet in a home as a Christian would be illegal in Afghanistan. And when you think about Haiti, Haiti has just had an earthquake, it's had a hurricane, very difficult to meet today. And so I don't want you to necessarily feel sorry for them. I want us to pray for them and to lift them up, to be strengthened. But God understands our context, and He also understands the fact that we are in America. And for that reason, I want you to lean in, because we're blessed to be able to meet in homes this week. Well, we may be, oh no, we can't meet because we don't have a building and we can't be at camp. The reality is, this is how the church started. And we're blessed to be able to do it. And we're a force to be reckoned with, to bring hope and healing to a world that's hurting. And so lean in over the next few minutes of the time that you have together. Your leaders have some discussion questions to help you kind of get the conversation going with your groups. But I want you to look around right now. That's right, look around right now. Those people, they're the church. You are the church. And so now it's time for me to sign off, and it's time for you to get after it.